Just because January 2022 is over doesn't mean that we can't still talk about it. In this video, I wanted to go ahead and talk about some of my favorite entertainment from January 2022, and that involves TV, movies, comics, and games. Let's do this. So, on this list, this content wasn't all released in 2022. Some of it is from 2021, but January tends to be a month where it's cold outside. I live in the Northeast and you tend to be inside more. So one has more time to watch TV and play games and read comics and the such. So let's go ahead first and start with the shortest list, which is games. Now, I'm an Xbox gamer. I'm a subscriber to Game Pass, and these games were all on Game Pass, and I finished all these games in the month of January 2022. And these are some of my favorites. The Gunk, which has the voice talents of Fiona Nova from G4 TV. What I like about the Gunk is it's not a hard game to kind of learn and to play. And also, it's over in about like 7-8 hours. And I as time progresses, I hear about other podcasters talking about this. I hear Gary Whitta talk about this Xcast on Kind of Funny's Xcast. It's an Xbox podcast, and they're on YouTube as well. I like shorter games. I don't want to spend 30, 40, 50 hours on an experience unless it's like a world that I very much enjoy. The last game that I spent a long time with, which was like about 25 to 30 hours, was The Outer Worlds, which I loved and I really enjoyed that. But I find myself like I want to play Mass Effect. It just became available on Game Pass, and just the number of hours that would take is really pushing me away from that. I think of games like a streaming series or a movie. Like if I can start it and finish it in a few hours, and that's a great experience, I love that. I want to move on to the next game. There's such a backlog of great games that I love to play, but if a game, like I said, I don't care how good it is. If it has 25, if it's a 50-hour game, unless I really love the world and the mechanics, then I won't play that game out. Even if it's like the most highly rated game ever kind of thing, I will definitely stay away from it because of the length. But the Gunk, and I very much enjoyed the experience. Cool looking game. The voice acting was great, and I recommend that for sure. The other game that I picked up and was playing in 2021, but I got to finally finish it in 2022, January 2022, was Wolfenstein the New Order. The Old Blood was one of my favorites of last year, and both of these games are games that were released within the last decade, I guess. And they're still fantastic games. And Wolfenstein the New Order is it's like an action movie almost. But finished that, the final boss, I had to go and watch YouTube video to figure out how to beat him because I couldn't beat him. It was like this big robot. No, it was a man in a robot suit. And he was kicking my ass, and I could not beat him. But went on YouTube, thankfully for YouTube and other YouTube creators and other YouTube gamers. Well, that just got dark real quick there. Other YouTube creators, other YouTube gamers, posting their videos of how they pass or beat bosses or get through a difficult part. So Wolfenstein the New Order, super dope. I'm kind of going through that right now. I'm trying to finish Back for Blood, but I'm on the second to last level, and I just keep biting it, definitely. And I've seen a YouTuber beat that second to last level online, but I'm having trouble with it. But I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it definitely. But the Gunk and Wolfenstein New Order were two of my favorite games that I've finished, that I've started, finished, and in January 2022, and I recommend those. Now let's go ahead and move on to movies. This one's another short list. 3 movies that I've watched more movies than this in the month of January, but these 3 were my favorites, definitely. I rewatched Eternals finally on Disney Plus, and the first time I saw Eternals, I thought it was good. I didn't think it was like the best thing ever, but this time rewatching it, I enjoyed it more than I did the first time I don't know why. I think I just was paying more attention and I was just more focused on it. But I enjoyed it more. I enjoyed the characters more. The villains being like those creatures in that one particular one that evolves, they're still not great. But I would say that the major villain is the guy from Game of Thrones. I'm forgetting his name right now. He's like the major villain. And spoilers if you haven't seen Eternals. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling it for you. But he is, for me, the major villain in the movie because the creature villains, they're not that great. But I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the interaction between the characters. And yeah, Eternals on the second rewatch was good, and I actually sat down and watched it the whole way through. I did the same with Shang-Chi, but I was kind of in and out with Shang-Chi, and I was just like, okay, let me watch it, and then I like dropped it, and then I picked it up later. But with Eternals, I sat down, watched the whole thing, and I enjoyed it more on the second viewing. The second movie that I heard good things about, but I never got to see it, but it finally came onto HBO Max, was Ridley Scott's The Last Duel. And this has an all-star cast with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, Kylo Ren, which I'm forgetting his name right now, and the actress from Killing Eve, I'm forgetting her name right now. But super enjoyed this movie. This movie, like once I started it, it really had me hooked. And the perspectives of the movie takes place within three perspectives of three characters, being Matt Damon, Kylo Ren, whose name, once again, the actor name I'm forgetting right now, and the lady from Killing Eve. And like I said, and I love the way it just kind of weaved into each other. And it's not the first time I've seen a movie where it's three different perspectives uh, of a similar incident. I would say if you like that kind of storytelling, check out this movie called Vantage Point. That's from back in the day, but that's a fantastic movie that does something very similar. Like I said, different perspectives of the same situation. And I really enjoyed this, and I really enjoyed how it ended. And it was pretty brutal and gruesome in some parts, especially the end. But The Last Duel was great. I really, really enjoyed that. And, most of Ridley Scott's movies are good. I'm not saying they're all great, but most of them are. And this is definitely one of the good ones for sure. This is one of the great ones for sure. And the final movie that I really enjoyed that I watched in January 2022 was DC's animated movie Injustice. And this was fantastic. I didn't even know how good this was going to be. And this is based on the video games where DC heroes kind of fight each other. But this was really something else. I very much enjoyed this. It was really brutal, very action heavy. And like I said, I was just impressed. I just was like, I felt like this is like a hidden gem. Like nobody's talking about it, but this thing is fantastic. So once again, the animated DC movie Injustice, based on the video games, the fighting video games of the DC characters, animated movie on HBO Max. Check that out. So good, definitely. Now moving on to comics. Watching the Book of Boba Fett and the appearance of Black Chrysanthemum, or it's the Chewbacca-like creature that shows up on the show that kicks ass, and he's awesome. And I knew I had seen him before because I had read Dr. Afro comics before. But one of the comics that after seeing him on the Book of Boba Fett, one of the comics that I went on to Comixology and read was Dr. Afro Volume 1 from 2017, because I think there's another Volume 1 from a different year. But Dr. Afro is such a fun character, and it wasn't my first introduction to her. Like I said, I saw this character on the Book of Boba Fett, this Chewbacca race character. I'm forgetting Kashyyyk. I think is the planet of the Chewbacca race, and I had seen him before, and like I said, seen him in the Dr. Afro comics that I read before. The Dr. Afro comics that I had read in the past were more of her having dealings with Darth Vader, and them having kind of like a deal where she helps him out and they kind of help each other out, vice versa. But there's always a threat like that Darth Vader would kill her. And I had seen him, and I had seen her two droids, like these killer droids, whose names I'm forgetting now as well, who they're assassination droids. They look like C-3PO and R2-D2, but they're in black, and they specialize in like torturing and assassination and murdering people, and they're a lot of fun in the comics. But this Dr. Aphra book, it's in this volume 1 from 2017. It's her going on this kind of this treasure hunt with her dad, who is kind of like into this particular religion. But all those characters show up. Black Krasinski, I'm butchering his name. Those 2 killer droids and Dr. Aphra all show, are all in this comic, and it's a really fun adventure. And it makes me hope that in this universe in Disney Plus that Star Wars is building, I've heard others say that Star Wars is fantastic on TV as opposed to making movies. You could do both, but the TV is really fleshing it out. Even though I thought the Book of Boba Fett, by the time I'm posting this or publishing this, it's finished. And it was good. It wasn't great. But the introduction of these other characters that you've seen in the animated series, that you've seen in the comics, I think is super cool. And I hope to see Dr. Aphra in maybe an upcoming season of The Mandalorian or any of these number of shows that are coming to Disney Plus. So Dr. Aphra Volume 1, fun adventure, a good time whenever you see her and those 2 killer droids and Black Krasinski. So I recommend that. Another one was Once and Future Volume 2. This comic is super cool. It's using characters from like the King Arthur period and that kind of like period, like Lancelot, King Arthur, Percival, Beowulf, and they come to life, but they're all like creatures and zombies. And these 2 people, there's an older lady and her grandson, and the older lady, she's like a grandma, but she kicks ass. It's like their job to kind of make sure, because like when these King Arthur characters are resurrected, like I said, they're like kind of zombies, like ghost-like creatures, and they want to take over England. And it's the job of this old grandma and her grandson to prevent that from happening. And it's like an action book, but it's really cool. Once and Future Volume 2, I finished that, and that was a lot of fun. So this writer, his name is James Tynion IV. I hope I'm not butchering his name. And he wrote this comic that I'm very much enjoying called Something is Killing the Children. And been reading that, been definitely enjoying that. And as always, if I'm reading a writer's work and I really enjoy it, I'll go ahead and once again look on Comixology and see if there's other work by him and kind of check it out. And I found this other comic that I just been devouring, and the last comic I'm going to recommend in this comic section is The Woods, Volume 1 and 2. Which I'm still reading a bunch of the volumes here in February, but I discovered these and I read these in January and super enjoyed it, and I recommend it as well. The Woods is this high school of kids that gets warped to this other planet, this alien planet, and they're trying to rebuild their society on this alien planet with the residents on this alien planet and all the adventures and the mischief that comes from that. So good. If you like things like, it's a combination of almost like Lord of the Flies, but there's adults in this one, but Lord of the Flies, there's a little bit of the Faculty vibes as well, in terms of this like high school kids getting into the sci-fi horror action adventure, and this book has all those elements. So The Woods by James Tynion, it's wrapped up now. I like I said, anytime I recommend comics, always on Comixology. I like Comixology. It's a subscription service. I know there's so many subscription services, but they just have so many great books on there. So and this whole series is on there, and I recommend it. The Woods, like I said, high school action sci-fi horror on a different planet. Super cool. And that's it for the comics section. Now for the final section, and the biggest section, is TV. Big shout out to Grace Randolph on YouTube. I'm a big fan of hers, and her suggestions and her recommendations and her reviews and especially her movie news and her movie breakdowns. Her movie news and trailer breakdowns. Very much enjoyed them, and wish that she would put all that in the podcast form, similar to what John Campea does. I'm a big John Campea fan as well, and they're part of the inspiration as to why I even got into like doing movie reviews and stuff like that. So big shout out to those two. two shows that Grace Randolph recommended, two of her 2021 favorites that I just didn't watch or didn't really have on my radar or anything, were White Lotus season 1 on HBO Max, and also Only Murders in the Building on Hulu. Murders in the Building, Martin Short, who I'm a big fan of, Steve Martin, and Selena Gomez. So much fun. And like I said, anytime I get to watch Martin Short and Steve Martin, I'm not the biggest Steve Martin fan, but more Martin Short. I really enjoy them. They had that special. I don't know if it was on Netflix or if it was on HBO, or they have a special together. But that was a lot of fun. Um, but Murders in the Building was a good time. It was a good time, and it looks like there's going to be a season 2. So Grace Randolph recommendation: Murders in the Building on Hulu, super fun. And another one being White Lotus. Now this show I didn't know anything about. I just went on to it, like I said, through Grace Randolph's recommendation, and I really loved this show, especially the soundtrack, which is kind of like it's music, but then there's a lot of like people breathing and making noises with their mouths. It's wild, but the show is like a comedy, kind of like a little bit of a thriller, a little bit of a murder mystery as well. Not a murder mystery, no, but definitely had a thriller with a murder that takes place, and it's wild, but it's more comedy. And I think what I enjoyed most about The White Lotus was the conversations between the characters and kind of reflecting on myself and on my life with these different characters. Also, what I liked about The White Lotus is it takes place in a hotel kind of setting, and I've worked in a hotel or hotels for many years, so I could relate a little bit to some of the situations in the show, and that's another added layer as to why I enjoyed The White Lotus. The final two shows that I'm going to recommend, like I said, this is all January 2022 favorites, all recommendations. Those two shows, Ozark season 4 part 1, because there is going to be another part, like the remainder of the season, of this final season, and just the acting between these characters once again is fantastic. They just become the characters, and I've seen all of Ozark up to this point, and I think the thing that really caught me is how this family of 4, Jason Bateman and his wife and the 2 kids, how they started kind of on one particular level of like, I can't believe we're doing this, these criminal activities, or I can't believe you're involved in this, to now in season 4, part 1, they're all in. And there's no shame, there's no guilt about it. It's just like, what do we have to do? Who do we have to bribe? At points, like, who is it that we have to... I don't think in between them, but they're not surprised also by people being killed if they have to be killed. They're not ordering people to be killed, but it doesn't faze them if somebody has to be killed in order for business to progress, or whoever they have to get to, or whoever they have to pay off to go ahead and have business progress, even if it involves, like I said, bribing police or like the FBI or in some form or fashion, or coercing them or manipulating them. They're beyond the point of guilt and shame. And to witness that growth from season 1 to now is very satisfying as a viewer. So Ozark season 4 part 1, can't wait for part 2 to come later this year or whenever it's going to come. And the final show that was another discovery that I didn't know anything about, because some of these streaming channels, they just don't do the best job of advertising, especially Netflix, of advertising their shows. They have so many shows and movies, but they just, like, advertising, not so much. But this show, As We See It, on Amazon Prime Video, wow. Like, I think I cried in almost every episode of this show, and I cannot wait until it comes back. It's basically like 3 autistic people, on the autism scale, just trying to live a normal life, or not even a normal life, have a regular 9 to 5 kind of life, and have a social life. And there's someone who kind of comes over and is their caretaker, and a young lady, a young actress who was in Mare of Easttown. Like I said, I can't remember her name now, but she was great in Mare of Easttown. That was another show I watched actually in January, but it didn't make my list, But she's in this as well. And it just made me have sympathy for people who take care of people who are handicapped or who, I mean, they get paid for this, of course, but just like families, because they also show family members of these three uh, main characters, these three autistic characters, and how they're dealing with them, and with these individuals who have autism. And it just made me have a lot of sympathy. And I'm just to be grateful that I don't have to deal with that. But just that these people who take care of people who are sick or handicapped or have an issue, uh, and it just made me have more sympathy for them. Um, and like I said, I almost cried like in every. I laughed a lot too because it's a kind of like a dramedy, right? Like it's comedy and it's drama, and you see like the frustration of the people with autism. Like I just want to be free, but then like the family's like, I can't let you be free because then you're gonna do something crazy, or you're gonna do something that's gonna get you in danger, and I have to protect you. And it's a kind of a clash of like becoming an adult and also graduating like from becoming a child, and but then like you're an adult and you still have kind of childlike tendencies with this autism. Or even there's one character who can't even, in the very beginning of the season, can't even walk down the block without like some kind of loud noise or a dog that's like scaring them, and they just have to run back home kind of thing. So this show was so good. Like I said, it just I didn't even know about this show, and I gobbled it up all in like a night or two. Fantastic, fantastic. As we see it on Amazon Prime, check that out. If you've seen any of these shows, whether you've seen it now or later, or in 2021 or in the past, please let me know what you think. If you have any recommendations based on what I've recommended, then please recommend them down below in this video, and or on the blog at improveandhavefun.com. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm going to catch you on the next one.